He pushes in, and in less than 2 seconds, 3 rounds were fired. He hit me once in the arm. I fired 2. I hit him in the chest and the face.
Well, thanks so much for joining us, Jim and Amy. Yeah, so we're just kind of really enjoying our time here, checking out it's cool to see how much you guys put into this place because, like I said to Justin, I was here not that long ago, but whenever we pulled in, it was like, wait, is this the same place? So it was cool to see all the Western style stages and everything. We had trading post over the door now. I think that was new.
Oh, yeah.
So that was cool. But yeah, so we're just trying to tell the viewers what the AFD experience is all about. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Absolutely. What it's about, and the feedback that we get from our customers is it's about more than training. We're building a community, and when you do the right thing for the right reason, things tend to work out well. And so I'd like to take credit for it, but I'm not sure that we can. I give a lot of our credit to the people that come here. And when you're doing conservative values with morals for the right reason, it tends to attract positive people, and that just builds and builds and builds. So it is about building a community, being around like-minded people, and we all learn from each other here. As I've said before, I'll say it again, I don't consider myself to be an expert. I have a certain amount of experience that I've collected over the years, and so does everybody else that walks through that door. And we all gain from each other's experience. You've experienced things that I haven't, and vice versa. And that's with all of our customers who have largely become friends now, and we all feed off of each other. So we're just so blessed to be able to do this. I wake up almost every day. I can't believe where we're at, how it happened, but yeah, it's cool. Yeah.
Speaking of where you're at, I think it's a testament to how quality your guys' training and services, because you're in Green Creek, Idaho.
Yeah.
Where is that? Yeah.
We're lucky enough to be in Idaho County, Idaho. That's one of the nice parts. We're out here in the middle of nowhere, or since I grew up here, I like to say the middle of everywhere. The location makes it so we can have a private range. We don't have to look over your shoulder. We've had a few classes like that where we're on a public range, and then all of a sudden somebody else shows up and they're shooting over there, and you're like, well, they're all gun guys, right? But then again, what if they're gun guys with no training, Right. And so then you start wondering things like that. But we don't have to worry about that here. We have our own facility, our own classroom, our own ranges, and we started out with one range, but with a guy like this running the show, we're now up to 4 main ranges plus mini ranges. And if you come back in another year, there'll probably be another section of ranges built on the other side.
Yeah, she leaves me home alone, so she knows better, and she comes back, and it's just stuff up here.
Yeah, no, I'll bet. Yeah.
They'll build stuff in one day. It'll be range 4 appeared in like one day. I was like, wait, we were just talking about that last night, and then all of a sudden it's like...
We talked about it. I thought that meant green light go.
Right, yeah. I do the same thing with my wife. I mention it, she's like, what?
She didn't say no, but I remember.
Nice. And you guys have not only multiple ranges here, but you also have a couple other training locations now too, right? Through your franchise program.
We are, yeah. We have Riggins and Boise, locations. And those are set up a little bit differently. Currently, we don't have the luxury of having our own classroom on the range, heated, climate and controlled classroom.
Like you do here.
Like we do here, yeah. But we are working on that, and everything's a work in progress. So we hope to expand as time allows. If that's a path laid out in front of us, we'll take it. And if not, we're happy doing what we're doing. So
yeah.
We've added on 2 instructors. Both have worked with us here in this facility and developed into an AFD instructor. They both brought their own skill set initially, but we have a program where they can become an AFD instructor, and both have gone through that. So we've worked side by side with our instructors. We've gained their knowledge, they've gained ours. Tyler Stevens is our instructor in Boise, and his expertise is really speed and accuracy. He's got a really good, humble attitude towards training. He's really good, but you wouldn't know it if you talked to him.
Is he a competition shooter as well?
He is.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, he is a very humble one. So
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the guy. So, and he's able to pass that knowledge on pretty well. He's been working with students here, with what we've helped him in classes here, and then he started doing his own classes here, and then now he's down in Boise doing them by himself. And then in Riggins, we have Conrad Benez. He's a veteran, did some really cool stuff in the military, and his medical expertise is really good quality. He's got a lot of information that he shows in classes. And if you see him teach a medical class, especially when it's medical and tactics combined, that is like
He's in
his
the zone.
comfort zone. Yeah.
Nice,
He's
nice.
really just got that pretty squared away. And I've been to multiple classes with him myself. I really like his training. So
again, he's so humble though, which is one of the things that when you go through the task book is a requirement for us. We don't do arrogant instructors because there's really no place for that here.
Right.
But he's so arrogant. We'll ask him to do his bio, and it's like 2 sentences. And I'm like, buddy, what about all the stuff of you jumping out of helicopters and your chute failed to open twice in the dark? What about all that? He doesn't mention that stuff. And so I have to pry it out of him sometimes.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's done some, again, experience that I haven't experienced. And very fortunate to have them on our team.
Heck yeah, terminal velocity speed problem solving. That's a good skill set in that situation. Nice. And you guys are a really unique couple too, because most people in the industry, like I think of maybe an exception with John Lovell and his wife Becca, but most people in the industry, if you have a really strong instructor lead, the wife might be supportive, might not. But here in your case, you're actually another instructor and you do a lot of ladies classes, right?
yeah, I do ladies classes, but I'll be the lead instructor, and I assist with every other class out there. So we've taught handgun 1 through 5, rifle 1 through 3 together, and there's multiple ones of those, especially when we get a big class where I will be the lead instructor at least for half of the group or something like that. So I can teach any of the levels, but the ladies only classes are definitely my favorite. And then I like being able to pass on that knowledge and show them my tricks. And, our hands are smaller and our arms are weaker. So some of the times we have to come up with new ideas. Well, like, how do you run your charging handle on your rifle while you're still pointing at the target? And, we work through those issues together. And I think they're just more comfortable sometimes having a female instructor. So I really enjoy teaching those classes. And that's a lot of fun. But I enjoy the high level stuff too. So
Yeah.
Like when you're shooting out of a helicopter over here, blowing stuff up. Yeah.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, if I do too many basic classes for a while, I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
let's go do something. Can we go like run the shoot house for a second?
But the ability to have her with those ladies classes, to have a ladies only class instructed by a lady, I'm generally don't even stay for those classes.
Mhm.
And when you have ladies that come in and they sit here in the classroom and they sit down and you can see the nervousness, and I do the introduction for Amy to tell them what they can expect for the day. One of those items of what to expect is I'm not going to be here because it's a ladies only class. And
Sure.
last time I checked, I'm not a lady, so I'm going to remove myself. And you can see the stress just melt off of them.
Sure.
Don't take it offensively. There's nothing against me. The stress just melts off of them because the perception of what they perceive the firearms training class to be, which is high stress, is now starting to change in their mind, and they can calm down and then start to absorb the information better. So it's really cool to see that. We've had people from Boise drive by, however many places there might be between here and Boise, that have ladies classes to go to one instructed by a lady, and men aren't allowed. So when they say, can I bring my husband? No, you can't. Because the other ladies don't want a man walking over their shoulder, right?
Yeah.
That's why they're actually afraid of guns at this point, generally. So,
Yeah, that's fair.
It's pretty neat to see women conquer that fear. If you think of what you're most afraid of, are you willing to go to a class and conquer that? That's a pretty big skill set. I've had people walk through that door like this. Right. You can just tell
Sure.
they took every ounce of courage just to walk through the door. And by the end of the day, they're walking out with a big smile. They put their gun in the holster. They know what they're doing rather than, I had one lady walk in with it in a sock. I have this gun.
Oh my goodness.
And I was like, okay, so what's the condition of the gun? Don't know.
Yeah.
Been like that for 20 years. I'm
It
like,
sucked.
oh.
Well, my husband gave it to me like that. He told me to bring it, and he told me I was going to shoot it, and he told me I'm going to like it. So she will rewind all of that.
Yeah.
And start over for them. Yeah.
That's cool. So you guys do lady-specific handgun classes, and that's one of many offerings you guys have here, right? So what can you speak to some of the different classes that you offer here?
Yeah, the basic is handgun pistol, beginner introduction, and that introduction class, again, she teaches, can be men or women. And literally, if they don't know which direction, like they're not even sure where the bullet comes out of and how that's what that class is for. And that's okay. And from an instructor's perspective, in a lot of ways, that is much easier to deal with than somebody old like me that has a bunch of bad habits that was taught to me, and now I've got to. They don't have any bad habits to fix, so
Right.
that is okay. You can deal with that, and those
Like
people are
sleep.
actually really fun to work with, and she's way better at it than I am. From there, we go on to handgun 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and that's our basic pistol classes. And then rifle is again level 1. All the buttons on the gun, what do those buttons do? What can you expect? What's the appropriate way to use those buttons in the most efficient way? Might be different for you because we all have different physical restrictions, and so you may have to operate your gun differently. And we give you the pros and cons of that all the way up through level 3. And then level 3, level 5, level 3 rifle, level 5 pistol, then is scenario-based training. So that is our main setup on our main classes. From there, we go to all the mini classes, we call them mini classes, 4-hour classes, 2-hour classes. And we break those down to work on a specific skill set. So an example of that would be a strong hand offhand class. In handgun 3 and 4, pistol 3 and 4, we work on strong hand, one-handed shooting, and offhanded shooting. In this class, we're going to focus on those skills specifically.
Okay.
So yeah, because generally what people get in those classes is they get the skills, but you can't master them because you don't have enough time to do high volume reps is what it takes.
Yeah.
If you just take strong hand and offhand and you do a 2 to 4 hour class just on that, you can start to develop those high reps and then focus on that. So people can pick those mini classes when they come to a class and they see where they struggle. Oh, I need more work here. So now I'm going to look for a reload class or a pistol manipulation class or the red dot class or strong hand offhand class or low light. Because and you get that tuned in. So they can pick those and then start picking up those weak links in their training and filling those training gaps appropriately. So yeah.
And I don't think that's something that most people will do that often, like white light training or single hand manipulation or things like that. I was debating whether to put a white light on my handgun for quite a few years, and finally somebody just said, it's dark roughly half the time. I'm like, yeah, you're right. I need a light. Yeah. But practicing with it, that's another unique skill set that's added on to that. So that's really cool. And you guys are doing a lot of private training now too, as well, right?
Yes, we do. That's a pretty popular choice for people because then they can do it on their own time. They don't have to wait. Like if they been waiting for this class, maybe a handgun too. They want to learn that marksmanship piece, and they haven't ever learned that skill set. So then they're waiting and looking on the calendar, like, and it's on a day I can't come.
Sure.
So then they just switch it.
That's very common.
So they just can book that on their own private setting. So if it's a normal 5-hour class, we can usually get that done in sometimes 2 to 4 hours in a private setting because you don't have all the other disruptions that you have in a large group environment. And what we find is a lot of people like to put their own group together anyway. So you'll have a husband and wife who wanted to train together, and they'll book a private class, just the two of them. Or you'll have a group of ladies who, they meet every week for coffee, and they're like, hey, let's meet this week up here at AFD and go through a class. Or we have a whole group of guys who want to train together. We'll have work parties, basically. Like some of the local businesses will do it as a I'm pretty sure that they can write it off as a bonus for their
Definitely.
businesses and, do it as entertainment
Sure.
and an employee bonus type thing. And they come out and we feed them and give them the whole training experience. And that becomes like the Christmas party or the Thanksgiving event or whatever.
Or customer appreciation.
Customer appreciation. Yeah.
Idaho County Power and Light, Idaho County Propane. These are some of the people that come and put their groups together.
And you guys said smoke jumpers came out, and then you have all the camaraderie of all the guys out there. Like, dude, you suck. You're like, yeah.
Smoke jump. They're hardworking Americans, right? And then we get to spend time around them and draw from their experience because they also work in a high stress environment.
Sure.
Right? And
Yeah.
we got to make decisions based off of muscle memory, which we take. So they get that connection.
Mhm.
And so that's cool. And then, electric companies, Livewire Electric and other companies that do that here, Christmas parties, birthday parties, graduation parties. And so they can put those classes together and look at right on the website.
That's
2 hour, 4 hour, full day with lunch, and they can choose their options, choose their instructors. And
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, it's right on our website. They can just pick which class and they can book even Riggins and Boise through that website
Nice.
too.
Very
So you can just pick, say, I'd like a class with Jim on Monday at 4 o'clock. Okay, is he available? Nope. Okay, then they got to go Wednesday at 8 o'clock, and all the schedules right there. So
Nice.
it's really good.
that's one dynamic. The other dynamic to the private training is they're just not comfortable yet, and they maybe don't think they ever will be, shooting around and training around other people. And that's fair.
Mhm.
It's not super comfortable for our brains, we point this out, to have somebody firing an explosive object, aka a handgun, next to you and having the brass hitting you in the face.
Yeah, or coming down your shirt and burning you potentially.
None of us particularly like that. Eventually you get used to it and you inoculate yourself the stress.
Sure.
But when you're trying to learn the buttons on a handgun, it's not really conducive with learning when you've got all the other stuff going
Yeah.
on. So I'll use somebody for an example that just booked 3 2-hour private classes.
Mhm.
And after that, now she's ready for a public class.
Nice.
And she's in here in a private class and somebody comes in the store and they see that person. I didn't know you trained here. They know that person through other connections or
Mhm.
whatever. And that person says, I'm taking handgun 2 this weekend. You coming? Well, yeah, maybe I will now. I didn't know you came. That's
Right.
cool.
Yeah.
And now they know when they're ready for public training and to shoot on firing line next to other people, and they can gauge that when they're ready because only they know when they're ready.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not comfortable and you don't feel comfortable, you're not going to absorb the information. So we want people to feel comfortable, and then we'll add stress appropriately, and we want to get people out of their comfort zone just enough to
Yeah.
have those training scars come up and just enough to start to build
Sure.
those skills that they need to operate in a high stress environment. So
Yeah, I think that's one thing that really came across well yesterday is how you were talking about the fun, safe learning environment, right? And so that whenever people get out here, they realize that there's going to be a lot of good range safety officers and easy instruction. And for the newbies, the beginners, it's not a high stress environment.
No.
It's really low key, but still professional and safe so that they can take those lessons to heart and there's not a lot of mounting stress because you guys were talking about misperceptions, right? And how a lot of people think that they're coming here and man, it's going to be high speed because that's a lot of the entertaining reels you guys put out on social media. Somebody burn it down and shouting at you. And it's like, oh my gosh, what are we stepping into, right?
Yeah, we're both adrenaline junkies ourselves, so we're always drawn to that. Like I'll take the picture or the video of somebody doing something really cool because I'm like,
Yeah.
because we're celebrating with them.
Right.
But they didn't see how they got to that
The
point.
progression.
And
Yeah.
they started out slow.
Mhm.
They started out drawn from the holster, dry fire. Then we did slow work, but the video of somebody dry firing from the holster just isn't that exciting. But
Sure.
I probably
you don't want to watch that.
Making different mistakes on their draw stroke. Like,
Yeah, show all the mistakes along the way. Get your finger off the trigger.
Slow mo, right? We'll just slow motion.
Yeah, slow mo. Everybody looks cool slow mo.
Yeah.
But you're right. That is a common misperception that we expect you to come on the range running and gunning and being able to perform. But it is a class. We do expect to be able to teach you something, and we look forward to that part of it. We like to teach people things. And we always do the tell, show, do model where we tell what we're going to do, we're going to explain it, make sure everybody's got it. And then we demo how it's supposed to look. And then we have them do it with a shooter coach or with an instructor that beside them. So when people get out here, I think they realize like, oh, okay, it's not what I thought it was going to be.
Right. Yeah. I think that's a really important model. It's the same thing that we do. It's the same thing that in the Air Force, the way that they taught us how to represent a skill and translate to people. Because some people, it doesn't matter how many PowerPoint slides you show them. It doesn't matter how well you explain it to them. They have to see it. I'm one of those people. You could tell me nothing, but if I see a really good example, a killer demo, I'm like, I got most of that idea. Yeah, and then you can step right into it and perform. And I think that's one of the great things about coming to a class, whether it's, custom ordered for them or just jumping into a class you guys got scheduled, is that they get to see a good example after they understand the reason why. And then you guys are right there to coach them and help them through that progression. That's the fastest way for people to learn. Like, you think about how many training scars people who are self-taught have. Right? And they come in, they're like, I've been a shooter forever. And you're just like, oh, no, don't say that, man. We're going to have a lot of work. Forget half of it. All right. Let's start over. But it's really neat to see guys join the culture. And I think that's another thing that separates you guys and makes you different is you have a real culture here. And like you say, people come in, they're like, oh, you do the same thing? And you guys have a membership program too now, right?
Right, yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, we got a couple different memberships options, and that just allows them to use the range with no safety officer. They can come in any store hours and use the range. But to be a member, of course, you had to have taken some classes prior to that.
Sure.
We have to have the safety in place. But once you have the safety in place, you go out there and shoot, and there's somebody else on the range. You know exactly what that guy's doing. He knows what you're doing, and we're all on the same sheet of music, which goes back to everybody feeling comfortable and not being nervous and worried about their own safety.
Sure.
So get that in place, and you remember, use the range for free.
Yeah.
Anytime the store's open, as much as you want. And when I say the range, I mean the facility. Any of the 4 ranges and any of the 7, 6, whatever many shooting stations we have. You can go from one to the other, whichever one's open. And so that's pretty cool.
Yes.
And then you get free classes on one membership, half price on the other membership. So people can pick and choose that and get discounts in stores and other things along with that. But,
Very cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So memberships, it's a popular option to lower the training costs. And so people like that and they like being a part of something, but they don't have to have a membership. Some people are busy and they can only come here once a year and they train on their own. Membership would not make sense to that person. So.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's something that's really cool about this facility because you guys have different ranges. You have overhead cover, you have outdoor lighting. So like we were out in the wind and it was cold yesterday, but as soon as we stepped up there next to all the overhead cover and it got dark, we had lighting. So that was really, really neat. And then the other thing is like a lot of gun ranges will not let you do your own thing, right? So you could even have a membership there and you're stuck indoor where it's static shooting and there's no tactics.
All that lane shooting, yeah.
Yeah.
No more than 1 round a second or something
Yeah.
like that. So.
No rapid fire, like took all the fun out.
So I can sight my gun in there and that's about it.
That's about it. Yeah.
And then you guys also, with your store, you have a gun rental program, right?
Yeah.
So that's a cool thing, especially for new shooters thinking about upgrading weapons or which one to buy.
We actually deter people from they come in, I want to buy a gun. Do you maybe want to shoot some of ours first if they don't know? I mean, maybe they know, and if they know, that's great. But we actually suggest shoot ours first and shoot it under stress with time restraints. And I use myself for an example. Over 90% of the guns that I purchased without shooting them first were a fail for me. And so it is what it is.
Sure.
Like buying a pair of shoes without trying them on first. It's probably not going to fit you well.
Yeah.
And you only know that if you go and you hike X amount of miles in those shoes.
Right.
With this program, you can test them out under stress and you can find out if that works for you or it doesn't work for you. Or I can't reach the mag release because I got super short thumbs or whatever your issues are. Now you can get a gun that works for you.
That's cool.
So yeah, that's awesome. Save people a lot of money and headache and time.
And you can try some pretty cool guns too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, pistols and rifles on the rental wall, and then what we find a lot is people will rent one for the day and then they want to buy that one, and that's perfectly fine.
Because they can just do that.
They can buy it.
That's cool.
They buy the used gun at a used price, and then they go home with the same gun they've been training on after they fall in love. Then maybe after they try a few of them on their own, they'll give give a couple guns a try, and then they'll find the one they like. And
Mhm.
you know, because we could always say, well, you know, my favorite gun is this. You know, everybody knows I'm a Canik fan, and
Sure.
but that doesn't mean everybody should have a Canik. You
Yeah.
know, it's just that gun works for me, and that's the one that fits my hand well. But especially beginners will look at a gun and think that that's what they want just by looking at it.
Sure.
It's completely different when they actually get out there and shoot it.
And even the caliber, because I know a lot of guys, like their first gun, they'll pick a 40 cal. And it's like, why are you doing that, man?
Or even worse, they pick it for their life.
Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah. Or they'll go with the snub nose hammerless revolver, and it's like, yeah, that's a good beginner gun. I disagree, but yeah.
That makes shooting less enjoyable. If you don't have a good gun, you know, like you said, some of those with a 10 or 12 pound trigger pull, people don't like them, and then they don't want to train with them. So that's the nice thing about having the dental. When people come in thinking they don't want a dental, and then halfway through the class, and think, you know what, let's just try the dental. And if you don't like it, you don't have to pay for it.
Yeah.
And we'll swap them into a dental in the middle of the class. Like, oh, wow, this is so much more fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like, I don't really like my gun. I'm like, I don't like your gun either.
Yeah.
They wouldn't even say that. So you just got to let them figure that out for themselves. And unfortunately, and the man is often the man in their life partly responsible for that.
Mhm.
They buy themselves, their wives. I'm going to buy my wife a gun. Okay. And you choose what gun you think she wants, and you give it to her, and you say, here, go shoot it. Because you like the gun, you have misconceptions about what safe is, you don't think she's smart enough to run anything with that other than a revolver with no hammer. All those things. So now they're carrying a gun that they've either never shot, or they shot it once and they didn't like it.
Mhm.
And that's the gun I bought my wife. So we parallel it again with shoes. Okay, if that were the case, and you think that's going to work out, go buy your wife a pair of shoes in Lewiston. Don't tell her what you're buying, and guess on the shoes and say, look what I bought you. Try them on and wear them and like them.
Some stilettos for hiking, right?
Yeah. Very high likelihood that's not going to work out well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for that reason, I don't tell people just because I shoot a thesis currently. And that's what I shoot. That's what I like. It doesn't mean the other person's going to like it. I've had guns that do not work for me. And some of our friends and customers love that gun. It doesn't work for me because of the way I grip my gun. But for them, it works, and they don't have the issues with that gun. And you can only find that out through training and trying the gun. So, yeah, I know people are going to be mad at me. They all the time. They're like, "Oh, my husband bought me this gun, and I have to like it." And the husband's mad because I say bad things about what men do. I've done it before, so I've just learned to not do it. Don't go buy your wife a gun thinking that that's going to be. I mean, you can, but she may not like it.
Yeah.
And then they go home. They go, "Oh, I don't really like this gun that you bought me," and now they're upset with the
But I found
situation.
one that you can buy.
yeah.
And that's where the gun store comes into play. See,
Yeah.
that's why we have the gun wall on one side and the new ones on the other side.
There
And
you
like,
go.
oh,
And we're just
fine.
fortunate to have a range here. So
Yeah.
most gun stores, they don't have that ability. Some do, and
Right.
they go shoot the guns. But even at that, unless you do it under stress, you don't know. You could just go out and do some target shooting, and it feels good. I bought multiple guns like that.
Mhm.
I bought guns. I had to have two of them. I like them so much, and
Sure.
it felt so good in my hand.
Mhm.
Except with my grip, when I shoot them under stress, the magazine falls out during recoil.
Yeah.
That's a no-go for me.
That's a bummer.
But I didn't know that till I shot it. So
Sure.
what do you do? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. I have a lot of people in our classes like, I can't reach the buttons. Like, yeah, there's workarounds. They're not great. You know, if you just got the right gun, so much easier.
yeah.
Yeah.
We can try to make your thumbs longer.
Yeah.
But,
Thumb extenders.
yeah.
Yeah.
Picking another gun, like, might be a better option.
Something that I definitely wanted to hear from you guys about is the start of AFD. And I know, Jim, you were in law enforcement for quite a while. You became a law enforcement trainer. That was your gig. You were head of the SWAT team, right? And the undersheriff for Idaho County. And so can you tell us about kind of where AFD started?
Absolutely, yeah. We I was always a gun guy when I got into law enforcement. I got into law enforcement, did 27 years in law enforcement. But with that, I knew pretty quickly I was a gun guy. I always joke around. It's kind of joking. It's kind of true. I'm not particularly a bright, smart individual, so I like basic man stuff, and guns was my thing. You know,
Sure.
I didn't get into detectives and all the brain stuffs or white collar crimes or any of that stuff, but I did like gun stuff, and I knew I liked it fairly quickly. So after the time required, I became an instructor with law enforcement, and I started training law enforcement, and then ended up running the firearms program, and then getting into SWAT and CQB and that sort of thing. So I did that for years, and when I moved up to this area from a larger, I'd say a lot, not a lot larger, but a bigger agency in southern Idaho, we had a pretty comprehensive program. But with the firearms training, if you take that as a whole, so gun training, tactical training, defensive training, out of that, and there's like however many pieces of that pie there are, probably 20 or 30, mental conditioning would rise above everything else for me. So mental conditioning is what I was focused on. And when I would start taking those classes, I just wanted more of that. And that's just one piece of operating the gun and marksmanship and all this stuff. So with that, when I came up to a smaller area, I carried my gun everywhere I went because my trainers told me what a good idea was, especially in law enforcement, but otherwise, and all the dynamics of how fast engagements happen and violent encounters happen very quickly, and they're over in just seconds, and you don't have time to go find a gun and get it out of your pickup and all the stuff.
Right.
And so through training, I had been doing that for years. When I came up here, many people were not carrying off duty that I worked with. It's a rural area. We have, on average, in this county, one shooting every year or 2 years, and it just doesn't happen very often. And so because of that, I think there was some complacency there. And then 2007, I was involved in a shooting in my home, off duty, in my sweats, no shoes on. After that point, everybody started carrying. After that point, they're like, oh, this is a real thing, and it can happen here in rural Idaho,
Yes.
in this county.
And I think that's a really good note, is that you were in the middle of freaking nowhere in Idaho County, and you still had a perp come with torture implements for your entire family, and you were the one to stand in the gap. But you don't get to choose those moments. Those moments get to choose you, right? And are you ready, standing prepared in that time? And so that's something that I advocate for our students, and I use you as an example. It's like everybody thinks, hey, I'm not inner city, I'm not next to a big population, crime rate's not that high, but like it can still happen. Like you say, it's just a small statistic chance, but if it does it find you prepared?
Exactly.
And people always want to blame it on, that we have to live in a place that's bad. Well, if it's not that, then, well, that was somebody passing through, right?
Sure.
No, the guy who came to attack him and that night was somebody he lived just a few miles down the road. So it's not always what we think of stereotypical crime, that you have to live in the middle of a violent area, or you have to be near a road where violent people are going by and moving from those places.
In December, it was 6:11 p.m. When you talk about you don't get to choose time, you don't get to choose time, you don't get to choose the skill level of your opponent, and you just don't get a choice in that. So then we connect that to muscle memory and how important muscle memory and high reps in training is, because that's what you're going to be relying on. You don't get to use cognitive processing to complete those tasks in those very brief couple seconds. You just don't. And I had been trained on that for years. So at 6:11 p.m. in December in 2007, I get a knock on the door. I just got up I had the flu, so I had a fever, so I felt really bad. And I'm especially wimpy when I get sick, by the way. And yeah, shaking because that. And when I hear this knock on the door, I did what my trainers taught me to do, so I can't take credit for it at all. And I, of course, grabbed a handgun and I put it behind my hip because I've been doing that for years. And it's ludicrous to me to open a door when you don't know who's standing on the other side.
Sure.
So this is all the precursor that I've been doing. 100% of the time prior to this date, it has been somebody selling vacuum cleaners or whatever the case, or a neighbor that walked over, or a hunter that ran out of gas.
Sure.
The case would be. I have a conversation with him, that person leaves, and they never knew I had a gun in my hand behind my hip. Cool. So this night was different. As soon as I turned the doorknob, he pushed in. He had a gun in his left hand. He said, "Get your effing hand up." My kids were 5 and 7 years old at the time, and they were sitting on the floor next to me, 6, 8 feet away in the same room on a blanket watching TV. And this is happening right next to them. He pushes in, and in less than 2 seconds, 3 rounds were fired. He hit me once in the arm. I fired 2. I hit him in the chest and the face. As he comes in, and I did this for those of people that know this from the retention position because I didn't have time to point in. It wasn't appropriate because we were wrapped up with each other at this time. He was in my personal space. This happened. I fired the 2 rounds. He went down about 2 feet from my 5-year-old daughter at the time, face down, and didn't move. So lights out, or so I thought. And then I went to search him, and I put the muzzle to the back of his neck, and I started pulling out all these machetes and tools and cameras and all the stuff. He had military gear, fatigues on. Underneath, he had shin pads, elbow pads. He was ready for battle. So I'm searching all this stuff, and then I go to a position of cover. So up to the point where I started searching him, there was no conscious thought involved.
Sure.
It just happened. It's like I stood over on the other side of the room and watched this play out. And once I searched him and I went to a position of cover, and I told the kids to get back to the bathroom and cover themselves up back there, I'm covering him, and I'm thinking to myself, and I'm looking at the bullet hole in my arm, and the bullet hole in my arm landed in my arm and not here because of lateral movement. For those that are familiar with lateral movement, it is a thing, and it does actually work. But as I'm looking at my arm, I'm thinking to myself, I think I might have had a grin on my face, not because of the win, but because of it works.
Yeah.
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 Like, it worked, and it worked just like they said it was going to work. And I'm trying to process what just happened and how well everything worked. And so at that time, I'm thinking, man, this worked. And to go back, there's too many trainers to list in this video. We'd eat up the rest of the time. But Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman is my basis for mental conditioning and muscle memory and neural pathways. So I'm thinking at this time, it worked just like Dave said it was going to.
Sure.
Exactly. I've taken several of his classes, met him personally, had personal conversations with him. And man, am I glad I did, because had I have not went to the door with a gun that night, I don't know. Like, his intentions were to tie me up and cut the kids up alive with the machete. He had a tarp to wrap the body parts up in. He had a video to video the whole thing. And that was his intention. So when Colonel Grossman talked about the OODA loop and disrupting the OODA loop, I'm like, yeah, that does work. And it actually works really well. But had I have not had the high rep of getting offline, the high rep of ability, opportunity, and jeopardy, and connecting and doing a very quick threat assessment upon my objective and then reacting to that, there wasn't enough time to use conscious thought. So from that point forward, I'm like, I've got to spread the word how this works. After I went through that, this happened on a Wednesday night. I didn't sleep a wink until Sunday at 2:00 in the afternoon. So you go through all the PTSD stuff and all the stuff and the adrenaline dump and all that stuff. And when all that stuff started clearing out, and I just got addicted to training. So I started doing it for free. I'm going to do classes. I guess this stuff works, and I know it works. And I don't know why. I wasn't surprised that it worked, but I was surprised it worked exactly like I said it was going to work for the most part.
Sure.
And I made mistakes. I did my own after action review. I did the department after action review, but there were some mistakes that I made that they weren't deal breakers, but I could have done better. So I'm not saying I did everything right, because I didn't have to search the guy, and I shouldn't have got that close to the guy when the guy's laying on my floor bleeding all over my carpet. But I did anyway. And so there's a training gap there, and I recognize that. And then we use those mistakes, the things I did right and the things I didn't do right, in our training today. So that's how it started.
Nice.
And then I was pointed out by one of our customers this thing called liability, and how we could get sued if people trip on the doorway coming in and hurt themselves, and I should have insurance. And I checked in insurance and realized insurance was not cheap. And so then I needed to start charging for classes.
Right.
From that point, 2013 is when the business started officially with the LLC, to now it grew from that, doing classes for free, in a garage to this.
Yeah.
Yeah, to this.
Yeah.
And
And I
we're
remember it was still fun and it was informative in your garage. We would do the dry fire and all that. And
Yeah.
that was still a highlight of my training that I look back at. And it's like, yeah, I got some good reps in there, learned some good stuff. Yeah.
And all that stuff, all I did was for people out there that take training, wherever you train as many places as you can, is taking that and using that information. I just regurgitated what I learned from people that have been doing it longer than me. That typically most of that stuff is handed down from the military because they know in real time what works and what doesn't. And that generally comes from military down to law enforcement and then down to the civilian world. As you collect that stuff and you start doing that stuff, you start as an instructor to recognize what works well and what resonates with people in the most efficient way, because we have an obligation, I say we as instructors, to teach people in the most efficient way.
Yes.
Because they're here spending their time, which is valuable, their money, which is valuable. We want to maximize that training value.
Yeah.
So, man, and is it fun learning how to maximize that training value and what resonates with people?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really his strong suit, is writing the lesson plans and stuff. He likes to give credit to other people, but we don't have a playbook that we pull off of. You know, we're partnered with USDCA and things like that, but it's not their lesson plans. You're gonna get a completely different feel when you come to AFD,
Right.
and it's because of the lesson plans that he makes.
And it's always evolving, right? You guys are
always
like
evolving.
changing
Yeah.
that and
Yeah.
I tell
increasing
students, when you see me writing, that means the next time you come, there's going to be a little bit different because we found a better way to do it, or we realized that this doesn't resonate super well with people, so we're going to tweak this a little bit. Oh, and this worked, so we're going to try this, and we're always evolving those lesson plans. And if we fail to do that, then we have some gaps there that we need to fill, and so we have to continue to keep evolving those lesson plans. Then on top of that, you have different equipment, different holsters, optics, and lights, and it needs to be adjusted for optics because those are different skill sets, right?
Yeah.
So you need to start to continue to evolve. You don't have to, but I think we're missing the boat if we don't continue to
100%.
evolve. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it fun and interesting. If you do the same lesson plan for 20 years, that doesn't sound like a lot of fun.
No.
So, yeah.
Sounds like the NRA. Not fun at all.
Yeah, we're not
But-
big on PowerPoints. We use them a little bit just as a training aid, but no 40-point PowerPoint
Yeah.
slides here. You're gonna
Right.
be seeing people in action doing it and getting them with their own gun in their own hands as
And
soon as
to your point, Michael, if you tell somebody on a PowerPoint and they absorb 15% of that information, when you show them, that jumps up to 80. And then when they do it, it jumps up to 90 or 95 because
Right.
now they tell, show, do. So we try not to talk too much about stuff without them doing it at the same time. And that piece is actually evolving.
Yes.
We used to talk a little more and then do, and we kind of talk and do at the same time, pretty much depending on the level of class. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's important. That's a huge efficiency thing. But getting them out there, starting to get those reps early, that's really important for them because I've had people ask me, like, do you do any shooting first day? I was like, yeah. And then within a couple hours, you'll be out there, you know? And that's a huge thing for them because that experiential training is so much better. And I think that's a huge distinguishment between YouTube University and guys going out there and trying to figure it out on their own, as opposed to there with professional instruction. And you guys are seeing those things that they don't even know themselves they're doing and getting their level increased the fastest possible. So I think you have that, which is huge training value, and that's enough usually. But on top of that, you guys are welcome into a cool culture, and then they have friendships develop off of that. And I think something that you guys do that's really unique is you have a social hour almost every time after a training, right? Absolutely. So you guys have your own branded beer now. You got your branded coffee. So like, there's no downsides here. Yeah.
And that's where the magic really happens, after class, and everybody can sit around and talk. And then now they can look at each other's equipment and how that works for them. Depending on the class and the level, we can have open range time. They can go out and try each other's guns. And most times they end up that they knew somebody that knew that person. And then we start building that community.
So that's cool. You guys have gone a long ways. And like I said, whenever we came here, like I've been here not that long ago, and I'm seeing new ranges, I'm seeing new constructs, new things that you guys have built, are doing. So you guys are always evolving, always progressing, which is really neat to see. Yeah.
once he was able to focus on it full time, after he was able to remove himself from the full time job of law enforcement, and then being able to be an entrepreneur and really put those ideas into action. His mind's always going. That's why he sleeps like 4 hours and his mind's going. He's ready for the next thing. I think that it really helped our business grow to the point where it is now when he was able to focus on it full time. So I think our next phase, I'm almost there. I'm still only working part time, and then if I can jump in full time, we'll be able to take another big leap. Every time when you spend time working on focusing on something, and then it turns into something. So
Yeah.
you just give it what it needs, and then it'll be there.
Yeah, and there's some fails in there, but for the most part, we follow the momentum. The momentum kind of is starting to lead us, and we explore those options. And maybe they don't work out well, or they're not beneficial for the people that come here and their objectives. And so then we change it accordingly. So try not to be set on one thing, and this is what I'm doing, and I'm not changing it.
Sure.
I try to get out of that mentality, just like we do on the firing line. We show you the most efficient way that we think, and that might not be the most efficient way for you. So if you can't shoot isosceles or Weaver, one or the other, and you have to mix the two because you got pins in your back, you can't shoot one or the other.
Sure.
You have to mix the two. And the general playbook says this. We're going to tell you the pros and cons. If you want to operate your AR with your operating hand and take it off the okay. If you have to do that because you got shoulder injuries or whatever, the negatives are this. You're taking your operating hand off the operating place on that gun. And so you have a gap there.
Sure.
But if you want to do that anyway because of all the issues, okay.
Yeah.
As long as it's not a safety issue, you can do it.
That's cool.
Yeah. We don't line everybody up and you have to do it my way. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's a big thing too. Help people where they're at and get them to where they can progress. So you guys are constantly progressing. Where do you see the future of AFD? What's next for you guys?
I think a nationally recognized brand is one of our things that AFD becomes a trusted place where hey, I can send my kid there. I can send my wife or my husband there, and everybody's going to be safe, and everybody's going to know that no matter where the facility's at, that we won't grow too fast that all of a sudden we have a place in Louisiana and we don't even know the instructor.
Sure.
It's
Right.
gonna have to be
Which you see that with some companies.
Yeah.
That's what they do.
Yeah.
They grow too fast.
too fast. Yeah, so we want to grow at the appropriate rate where we can continue to monitor and train and have a hand in everything, every station that is out there. That it feels like AFD everywhere you go.
Sure.
If it's labeled AFD.
And I'll use an example of that. And it doesn't mean that you have to like this place, but if you see a Les Schwab sign, you know what to expect
Sure.
when you go in there. That's what they do. Now, you may not like Les Schwab and you may choose to not go in there. But it should be consistent across the entire company. No egos, safe, fun learning environment. And we don't talk people down. We don't yell at you unless they know before they come to class. That's part of the curriculum based to increase the training value.
Yeah.
So should remain company-wide. And there may be some things that people don't like and choose to not come, and that's okay. You don't have to be just like us. When I said like-minded people are like, oh, I gotta be just like you. No, you don't have to be just like me. But if the Constitution or the mention of Constitution or Christianity offends you, you don't have to be like me. But if that offends you, it may not be the place for you, and that's okay. That's all right.
This is the heart of America right here.
You're gonna hear those things.
Yeah.
We're in America, and we assume people are in this country for a reason. And I'll just use people are like, oh, that's controversial. You're gonna hear Christianity mentioned. It's not a Bible study. It's not that. But you're gonna hear that mentioned. You're gonna see the cross above the door. If those things offend you, then it's probably not the place for you.
Right.
Because you guys are
That's
building
okay.
a culture here. Yeah.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we don't want people to get confused. Oh, I got to think just like you. Because not two people think alike. We can both read the Constitution and we're going to come up with different perception of what that means.
Sure.
But we generally agree with the Constitution. But what does this word mean? I might think it means something. And you may think it means something different. And we don't need to argue over that.
Sure.
Because the last time I checked was still in America.
So something that we were talking about last night was like some different things that customers have told you guys, like you find consistent. What do you guys think is some consistent feedback you guys get from your clients coming through here?
The first thing that comes to my mind, very brief, is, we didn't know what it's going to be like. this is so much better. They thought it was going to be high stress. They thought somebody was going to yell at them. They thought we were going to train on a curriculum and they were going to have to follow that regardless if they were comfortable with it or not. That's the biggest thing. It's like, God, I wish I would have known. I wish I would have known. I can send my niece there, my granddaughter, my wife, and feel comfortable. It's going to be safe because we have shooter coach, and there's one person watching one person to make sure they're safe, and the person shooting next to them can rest assured they have somebody watching them all the time to make sure they're safe. That coach is there to help them and assist them through the whole class, plus instructors, plus range safety officers.
Sure.
So if you've ever trained in an unsafe environment, it is a bad feeling and it will keep you up at night.
Yeah.
So
Turns you off.
Yeah. So we'll check through the day. Everybody feeling comfortable? Any issues need to work out prior to moving on. Yeah. What else do you hear?
I wish we would have found this place sooner. That's a pretty common
That's a
one.
good thing.
Yeah.
That they can't believe what level we train at, especially the law enforcement people who train.
And military.
Law enforcement and military all the time. I've had law enforcement training and military training all over the world or all over the country, but wherever they've been, and they're like, and there's nothing like this. And, that's just true because of liability and things like that. But we have enough safety measures that we can do some really high risk things and keep it safe for people. The civilians.
Level
Yeah.
appropriate. Yeah.
You guys have a shoot house out there. You can shoot full capacity, live ammo, and clear it. Yeah, which is
Which is really, really cool.
Yeah, we've had people from California law enforcement. There's a lot of them that move up into this area, and for good reason, right? Everybody loves Idaho's freedom, but when they come up and see that, like, I was in law enforcement, we didn't do that.
Yeah.
You're really going to go live fire with a bunch of civilians? I said, I'd rather go with civilians than law enforcement. Sorry, don't put that one in the video. But the civilians train because they want to, not because they have to. And that's the biggest difference between law enforcement and civilian training.
Sure.
So law enforcement typically will train to their bare minimum, which means we'll get them
If
to
they're not
like,
gun guys, if they're gun guys, like SWAT guys or gun guys, or like they just like guns,
Yeah.
different story. They'll
Yeah.
train on their own.
Sure.
And what she was describing, we're not being critical towards law enforcement. I was that guy. I've gotten better at what I do by shooting with people better than me,
Sure.
right? And some of those guys were law enforcement guys, but largely it's the guys that want to train and train on their own. And you'll find that in the civilian world or law enforcement world. And when we were in law enforcement, and I use myself as an example, you're working full time and you're in a small area. And then somebody gets sick and now you got to cover a shift.
Sure.
And now you're working overtime. And then you get home and the water heater broke and you're doing that and the grass is growing and you got all the stuff. You don't have time in their defense. They got a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
When that military guy or law enforcement, either one, retires, now they have time to focus on what they really love.
Yeah.
And now you can get really good.
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah. So that's cool.
Yeah, is there anything else that you want to share with the viewers and so they have a good representation of AFD, culture, services, any of that?
The thing that I would add is we like to encourage training and not just here. Like you should go, we're going to push as many customers as we can to. You're going to have a different way, even if you're training the same skill set to your students. You do things that we don't do. But if we're going to take pistol training, you need to broaden your horizon as much as possible. So you're going to deliver it in a different way that might resonate people that we don't have the tools to do that. So train somewhere, and you don't have to go to training to your facility or my facility, but consistency in training, you can do it right in your living room. You can do it with your church groups. You can do it with your friend groups once you have the basics and know how to train.
Yeah.
And we offer assistance to line that up for people. Say, hey, we're looking for reloads. Can you remind me what some good drills are? Yeah, sure. Well, of course. And you can do that on a regular basis. So it's like anything else, consistency. If I want to be good at snow skiing and I do it once a year, I'm never going to get very good.
Sure. Yep.
If I do it as often as I can during the season, maybe not as long, but often as I can, I'm going to get better at that skill. If I play a guitar once a year, I'm not going to get good. If I do it 10 minutes a day, 4 days a week, I will get good at it.
Sure.
So it doesn't have to be a long, drawn out thing. You can do dry fire in your training with your spouse or your family. You can make a game out of it. You can do it 10 minutes once a week. It's way better than training once a month for 2 days.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. That
So
consistency.
train somewhere, because
Yeah.
when my family's in a violent situation, and I don't care who's there to help them out. I don't care if he's trained here or not. I would like that you have trained somewhere and you can help my wife, my kids, whatever, in that situation.
Mhm.
And hopefully people start resonating with that. That's what we kind of move them towards.
Mhm.
Whether you know that person or not, whether you're in a local town or another town, that person, I would want you to come to my family's aid, and we will do that for other people that we don't know.
Mhm.
And then that's what starts to make the community stronger, is that, right?
Right. Yeah.
When you see a weird guy hanging around a lady and you go up and start having a conversation, he doesn't want to deal with you and her both.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he'll kind of pedal off.
Yeah.
And situation avoided. We just won that confrontation, and I've never met the lady before.
Sure.
Or the guy before. If I have a guy half my size and I could deal with a guy and he's on drugs or mental or whatever he's doing, I would like it if somebody that I don't know would come up and help me with that person and de-escalate the situation so I don't have to use force and get into that long legal battle.
Right.
Because when you go through that legal battle, your family's going with you, and it's not great. So if you could avoid that, cool.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I think another great benefit for people is kind of like we were talking about last night, is just the quality of life, right?
Yeah.
You don't have that fear factor because it's no longer unknown. Not just with, I mean, you build confidence, right? Putting on another skill that was maybe scary, so you faced a fear there, but now going out there in everyday society with the inherent dangers, you now have a better awareness of what that could look like, how you can step up and avoid those things, number one, but if it is going to happen, that you can have a leg up and hopefully be more and better trained, better equipped than those antagonists out there, the villains that are always going to be in society.
It brings peace to people's life.
Yes.
People think when they expose themselves to mental conditioning at first, they think it makes them a bad person. And it's unsettling at first, but over time, it's much more peaceful. It brings peace to your life and your family's life. It really does. So get it from somewhere. If you don't get it here, just get it somewhere and make it fun. And if it's fun, you'll keep doing it.
That's cool. Awesome.
This is great. These services that you guys provide, the culture that they can step into. What's the best way for them to sign up for a class, see what you guys got going on, and actually participate here?
Our website's by far the easiest, afdidaho.com.
Okay.
I'd recommend that, but we're on Facebook and YouTube, and we're here in person in the store. We got a building right here in Green Creek, so you can come in person too. So however you want, pick up the phone, call. Phone number 208-935-5734.
Okay.
And for locals, just stop in Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. I wish we had open every day, but yeah, I have no more bandwidth left in that arena, but we will. We'll be open. So yeah, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, stop in and look around.
Okay.
People say, oh, I don't know what to expect. I like doing a recon before I go to a place, right? So come look around.
Sure.
Come have some coffee. We got coffee on all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. AFD brand. Reload, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Reload. Yeah.
Reload, and then the beer is downrange. So
Heck yeah. Slightly jealous and gonna have to step up my game. That's awesome, guys.
Thank you.
All right. Very cool.
Thank you.
Nice.